morning, everybody. It is July 12th, 2025, and this is Borderland Talk with Jim Budd. I'm your host, and let's look at what happened this week in immigration news, specifically in immigration enforcement news. The theme of today is, and this week, has been understanding that the immigration enforcement agencies, when their mouths are open, they're lying. And I would extend that to DHS as well, because they're, obviously in charge of the immigration enforcement agencies. And when I say immigration enforcement agencies, I want to remind you, I mean ICE, Border Patrol, and then Customs and Border Protection, also known as CBP. Those are the three immigration enforcement agencies. And so the theme this week seems to be that they're lying, which is something that they always do and have done for a very, very, very long time. And the media is rarely ever able to call them out on it. They just won't do it. They'll just report whatever they say. And by the media, I'm talking like NBC News, CBS, ABC, Fox News. Obviously, they're going to report whatever the Border Patrol and these agencies tell them to report. So this is a large problem. Like what we've had with the invasion and the way Fox News and the right-wing media was helped by the Border Patrol Union to create fake crossings and all sorts of stuff. This is what they're doing now. They're still doing this stuff. And I think one of the reasons why it is so hard for many of you to understand and accept that these agencies just flat out fucking lie all the time, just absolutely make shit up in front of the press and just say whatever they want. I think it's hard because if you have been raised in this country, then you are brined in American exceptionalism, just as I was and believed a lot of this nonsense that I was taught from the United States Border Patrol and from the media and stuff. And it takes a while to unlearn that, I'll be honest with you. I started trying to unlearn that probably after my attempt in 2015. And that's been one of the most difficult things that I've had to overcome. Every time I think I've overcome it, then I find myself, there's another instance where I think maybe the agencies, and then sure as shit, they're lying. So obviously not all the time that they're lying. They're not lying all the time, I should say. But I'm going to point out to you how much they actually have lied to you within the last 10 years. I'll keep it to that. Okay. And we're going to look at a few videos that I've seen come out this week and talk about them. This is it's going to be a hard discussion for you. You tend to want to believe what the agency says, agencies, let me put it that way, say, and they kind of don't make sense for the reason why they're doing some stuff. But when you understand the agencies and that they're in their motivations, and that their motivations are power, money, and they want to be seen as heroes and nothing else. And anything that is anti-Border Patrol, anti-ICE, anti-CBP, that's just, they will throw you over in the criminal aisle. Like the easiest way to put let me put it the easiest way. Most of the people in these agencies are very undereducated, and their only experience tends to be within these agencies. And they are ingesting nothing but Fox News, right-wing propaganda, and information that suggests that they are one step below God. They honestly believe that they should be able to commit crimes and get away with it. Just check out my past couple of videos. They honestly believe that Democrats are un-American, that they are somehow socialist, or, which is ridiculous, or sometimes they call them communist. That's ridiculous as well. They honestly believe that somehow Democrats are running pedophile rings, even though, I mean, the policies are the same from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. It's just absolute nonsense. Are there pedophile rings and stuff? Are children from the border caught up in these things? Are children who are unaccompanied and put into, ORR and the other agencies that deal with those children, are they letting children go to foster parents and then we're finding them in companies being used as child labor? Sometimes, yeah. But those policies, this is not to excuse that, those policies and these problems existed under Trump as well. So it's, they like to say, oh, Biden did all this. No, Biden did not all do that. And they come up with this number of 300,000. I'm not sure how they get that number. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And I will say one of the ways that that their accusations of these Democrats are all pedophiles and they're using unaccompanied children, one of the ways that that is absolutely ridiculous is the fact that, look at this Jeffrey Epstein thing. They go on and on about this man, and he is adjudicated. He was adjudicated, and everybody knows his ties to these wealthy, famous people on both sides of the aisle. So cut it out. And yet, and that's all they've screamed about for years. Oh, Trump gets in there, he's going to do something about it. And Trump even said, "Yep, I'll release the list. I'll tell everybody about it." Bondi said she would do it. Bovino, Patel. And now you see suddenly they have the power and the ability to release these Jeffrey Epstein logs. And everybody knows Donald Trump's name on it. I mean, how many pictures are there of him with this pedophile ringmaster? I mean, come on. I wouldn't be surprised to find, obviously, Bill Clinton was on one of those planes. We know for a fact. I would not be surprised if Bill Clinton did that. There are pedophiles in every group. That's why there's so many preachers. That's why there's so many. I mean, they're everywhere. But to sit there and say, "Oh, we care so much about the children and we worry so much about the children," but now when they say, "Oh, we're not going to let that out," well, oh, now there's no list. There's no list. So at first it's like, now we're not going to talk about it. No, now there's no list. There's no list. There's no list because that motherfucker's name is on it. Because their daddy, Trump's name is on it. So they're lying and they're full of shit. And everybody knows Trump loves the young little girls. Come on, get out of here. So that's one of the ways that you can know this. So one of the things that's happened a lot this week, that's increased a lot this week, and this is where we're going to go, because as ICE brings violence to your communities, the reason why they're doing it, there's no reason to bring so much violence that they're doing. Most of these people have no choice but to go with them because they're heavily armed. They act like they're raiding people who deal in fentanyl, but let's be honest, they're not arresting anybody dealing in fentanyl right now. They're not arresting anybody dealing in crack cocaine, or I don't even know if crack cocaine's a thing anymore, but they're not arresting anybody for any of that. They really don't care. They're arresting moms and dads and children for not having papers. And I want to point out, I'll tell you this, there's no charge for not having papers. And so what that causes, honestly, is what they've wanted. When they bring this kind of violence in and they act like they're arresting some drug kingpin when they're not, some violent person and they're not, it's going to cause the reaction from their loved ones and other people. It's going to escalate. So they're bringing the escalation. They're bringing the violence. And then when people throw rocks at their cars as they kidnap their loved ones and drive off, well, as you'll see, now they're upset. Now they're the victims. They're the victims. Even though people are kidnapping their family members without warrants, they're kidnapping their family members without just cause. They're not telling anybody what's going on. And these things could have been handled in an administrative way. They want the response to be violent, so then they can justify increasing the amount of violence that they're bringing. And I know that you think that this is probably very violent already, and it is. A man died just the other day during an ICE raid, but it could be a lot more. And that's what they want. That's what they want to bring. I'm not saying your response is not warranted. I'm not saying your response shouldn't be whatever. I'm saying I just want you to know that that is what they want, because what they will do is always portray themselves to be the victims. The Border Patrol, ICE, and CBP, they are agencies that are heavily steeped, obviously, in white supremacy, but the patriarchy as well. And so they believe in that hierarchical thing. And they honestly believe that the crimes that people who are undocumented or even documented commit, if you're not an American citizen, they really believe, even if you just like get a DUI, they really believe you should be deported. But a lot of agents have DUIs and they keep their jobs, and it's not a problem. Part of the reason isn't just that we're all steeped in this, or many of us are steeped in this American exceptionalism, but it's also the propaganda that they put out that they're all heroes and stuff like that. So prior to 9/11, if you weren't born before 9/11, Americans did not look at the immigration agencies like this. They really thought we were pieces of shit. And that's because we were corrupt and we were pieces of shit. Brutalizing people, lying about it, making them crash in the middle of the night out there in the mountains and lying about it, saying we came upon it. We lie constantly. Part of it's also the propaganda. But then another part I do think is after 9/11, it's not to say that we haven't always had this bullshit appreciation of police in this country. We've gone through periods of time where we've had more and less. But certainly after 9/11, thank you for your service kind of thing. Even though none of us, most of us, most of the agents today, especially in immigration, they weren't around during 9/11. They didn't go into those burning buildings. But yet we still have this attitude, and we still constantly thank them. Like all the signs out there on your freeways are about cops who lost their lives. It's all named. This bridge is named after a cop. That road's named after a cop. This highway is named after a cop. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying we shouldn't have appreciation for people who do these jobs, but the idea that somehow they are above the law and the people that they arrest are way below the law, we got to stop that. One of the examples I want to give is this video that I keep seeing. I've seen a couple people put it out, different people put it out, and it is of the Border Patrol. And it's the Border Patrol where you see agents standing. I'm going to show it to you in a minute. And they're talking to a chief. And the chief's like, you know, you got to do your job and this and that. And the assumption that you all are making is that this is a current video. It is not a current video. And the people who are putting it out are saying, Border Patrol agents see what's going on and they're mad. They know that what they're doing is criminal and they want the chief to stop it. Here's the problem. Well, actually, I'm going to show you the video and then I'm going to tell you the problem.
We stay focused. We continue to do the job and the mission that we signed up for. Right? We all signed up for it. We all raised our hand.
It's kind of hard to say that.
To defend the Constitution, not the
It's not hard to say it. It may be hard for you to say it, but I've been doing this for 31 years. It's not hard for me to say it. Every day I wake up and I'm committed to this organization and I'm committed to each one of y'all.
Okay, so here's the problem. That chief is not the current chief of the U.S. Border Patrol. He's the chief under Biden, Raul Ortiz. Agents called him Hortiz. Why? Number one, because he is a Latino of high rank. Such disrespect in the United States Border Patrol for Latinos, whether they like to admit it or not. And two, because they called him Ortiz because they said that he did what Biden wanted him to do. He was carrying water for Biden. He was Biden's boy, as they called him. He was following the orders that he was given, just like they all do, and was also following the policy that Donald Trump had put in place, had enacted. He was following Title 42, which closed the asylum system and caused the majority of people looking for asylum to cross illegally. That is something every Border Patrol and CBP agent knows, that if you shut the asylum system down and you don't open it back up within a month or two, every single one of those migrants is going to turn around and cross illegally. And the Border Patrol supported this policy. The Border Patrol Union was on the news night and day supporting this policy, saying it's the only thing that keeps people from crossing the border illegally. No, it causes it, you dumb shits. But they're not really dumb shits. They knew that. And that's what they wanted during the Biden administration. And when you see these agents saying that we need good men to stand up and do the right thing, what they're talking about is taking over Biden. That's what they were talking about. This video is from 2022, as this screenshot shows. So your desire to see Border Patrol agents saying, it's wrong what we're doing, we shouldn't be doing this. It's not to say that there aren't some good people in the Border Patrol. And you may think that because maybe you go to church with somebody, maybe your neighbor next door is a Border Patrol agent, and you get the feeling they're a pretty good person. There's lots of good people in the Border Patrol, but those people aren't out there kidnapping people. They're at the academies or they're doing special details, and they don't deal with any of this shit. There's lots of people in the Border Patrol who don't do any of this stuff. They end up becoming like a firearms instructor at the academy for 10 years. That's a great job. If you love guns, who wouldn't want to go teach people how to use guns safely and stuff like that? It'd be fun. Or maybe you're really into physical fitness, so you go and do physical training and stuff at the academies. There's all sorts of details you can do and not be part of this brutality. Now, I, as an agent, could not parse that out and could not deal with that any longer because I was a field agent my entire career, but which was only 6 years. But still, I was a senior patrol agent. I got promoted to a senior, and then also I was an acting supervisory Border Patrol agent. So trust me when I say that. And this is one of the things also too that you see Tom Homan, the current border czar, and Secretary Nome, Christy Nome, do this all the time. Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks does this too. And in fact, here's like, he's so upset right now because people are saying mean things about his agents and criticizing his agency and for the kidnappings that they're doing. And, you know, he's like, oh, we got a mask and all this other stuff. Let me remind you, these are the fools that would not mask during COVID when Donald Trump was president because they thought it was all a joke, because they all believed him. And guess what? Those motherfuckers lost 15 agents to COVID because they wouldn't mask, because they wouldn't take the vaccine. And in fact, Biden tried to make it mandatory, and they threw such a huge fit. No, we have a right to die of COVID if we want. It's because they all support Trump endlessly. Perhaps not every single one of them, but the vast majority of them do. And that's why. And so, I mean, they're willing to even like give their agents bad advice. Oh, you don't got to wear a mask. Don't worry about it. Don't take those vaccines. And they lost a ton of agents. CBP lost way more than that. And you can go to their website, the officer memorial page, and you can see them there. It won't say that they died of COVID because they don't want future generations to know that. They just say it was determined by the government that their infections and their death was caused by their work. That's how you can tell that they're COVID. So they remove the COVID label off of them because the goal is for future generations to see how violent this immigration enforcement work is. So they're fucking with the statistics for the future. Here's another example of how they do that. Officer assault statistics. So this article was written in 2018 by Debbie Nathan, originally out of the Intercept, republished in the Tucson Sentinel. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they get this 73% increase. A 73% increase in agents being assaulted by migrants. And so Debbie Nathan looked into it to figure out what the hell's going on. And what was so odd about this, what made Miss Nathan curious about this, was that the assaults increased by 73%, even though the apprehensions had decreased by over 100,000 compared to the previous year. Okay. It just doesn't make any sense. So she started to look into it. And she found that almost the entire increase consisted of events out of one sector. When it is one person assaulting an agent, it's considered one assault, right? That's not how they started doing it. And in 2018 in Rio Grande Valley, somehow they started multiplying the number of agents involved in assaults with the number of rocks, with the number of migrants. So you end up getting one single assault ends up being like 119 assaults. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so that is one way in which they lie. Now, I know they do this because they used to do stats. That was part of my responsibility. They just keep falsifying their statistics. So we have no idea. So they've done this in the past. We have no idea if they've stopped doing it. We have no idea if they're continuing to do it. We just have no idea. They were doing that in 2018. So when today's news comes out and says the assaults against ICE, against Border Patrol, against CBP has increased 500% because of these kidnappings, take that with a huge grain of salt. Unless they actually physically show you the documents proving that there were assaults on officers, you should not be printing this. You should not even be reporting this at all. You just shouldn't be, because they lie about it all the time. So before we go on to other videos where we show them lying, I want you to think about other ways in which the immigration enforcement agencies have lied to you in the last 10 years. Let's think about that. So think about ways that they have lied to us. Well, I remember when Donald Trump first got in office, they said, we're not picking on Muslims. We're not going to do that. CBP was like, we haven't been given any specific orders to start pulling Muslims aside. And then they just started pulling Muslims aside and started doing that. And remember, attorneys went to the airport, immigration attorneys went to the airport to try and help them. So they lied at that time. Okay, what's another one? Child separation. And they continue to lie about that today. They say child separation, no, that was never a policy. No. Come on, we all sat here and watched you do it. Your zero tolerance. You took children away. Some children, over 100 children, still have never been reunited with their family. You lied about that too. How about how CBP has been telling us for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, that the pictures that they take of us when we cross the border legally, that they're not keeping them, that they're destroying them. And now you see that they're doing all that facial recognition and they're keeping everything. They lie about that too. They're keeping all those photos. They're lying to you. How about how they've been lying to you all for decades upon decades about oversight agencies? They claim that CBP, Office of Professional Responsibility, is an independent professional investigative unit that investigates CBP and Border Patrol agents for use of force incidents and crimes. They don't tell you that it's full of ex-Border Patrol agents. They don't tell you that DHS's Office of Inspector General is filled with ex-Border Patrol agents as well. They don't tell you all that stuff. They didn't tell you about the secret cover-up teams that they've had for 35 years, right? They didn't tell you about that either. They lied about that. They're still lying about that. So we know they lie a lot. But let's also see a video that shows how they use today, especially since like the Biden years. I mean, it's towards like from 2019 on. So part of Trump, Biden, and then now, how they coordinate with Fox News and right-wing news media outlets to create fake events. This one is about Iranian terrorists. Okay, they're full online about this. Full online about this. Okay, I'm gonna play the video. It's a little bit long, but I'm not gonna edit it. I want you to see the whole thing. All right, here we go.
Last night I saw the news report that KCAL 9 News did on the ICE raid in North Hills, and I really felt compelled to do a compare and contrast video based on what I actually saw there. Now, those of you who know me know that I am not some crazy conspiracy theorist looking to find explanations everywhere. It's just with this particular case, what I experienced didn't match up with the news story that was told to the public, nor did it reference the person renting the house who was manhandled by ICE. So I kind of just wanted to get this out there. As some of you know, I went to an ICE raid that was happening in my neighborhood yesterday. I had been getting the notices on local neighborhood apps. I had heard the helicopters overhead, and a friend of mine texted and said, I'm headed over to Home Depot because that's where everyone said it was going to be. I headed over to Home Depot and nothing was happening over there, but I could hear the helicopters and I knew they were outside of my house. This is literally right outside my house. ICE is in the neighborhood trying to disappear people. So I decided to head back over towards my house and see if I could find where the helicopters were. When I got there, there were about 20-ish or so people from the neighborhood there. People coming out of their houses, concerned neighbors, others that had come over that heard what was happening. As you can see, there were also several masked and armed men standing around. All of these men were masked and all had some type of firearm. The one with the pillowcase mask with the Dodger hat, not looking exactly official, wearing stuff from Amazon that can easily be purchased. Also in their cars, they had those little lights you can buy from Amazon that are not official police lights. So look at their fake lights they have in their car. We were there for a couple of hours just waiting, watching. One of the guys who was there as ICE told another person that what they were actually there for was for a drug bust. When it was all over, I went over to the homeowner who was standing outside because I saw the press starting to head over. And since I work in entertainment and interview people, I decided to go ahead and hear what she had to say. Both Fox News and Telemundo were there when I was there. They were interviewing her as well. What she told us was the following.
They gave us an address, but on the warrant it says 16108. It don't say 16110. But they said they have access to go through the whole house.
Were they rough with you? Did they take you to the ground?
No, they didn't take me to me. They pushed me. They manhandled me a little bit, but they didn't take me to me.
It was a big surprise to you.
Yes, very. Yeah.
Does this surprise you that this goes on in your neighborhood? It happens to you?
This neighborhood is quiet. This is the first time I ever heard anything around here, so I didn't know what was going on.
They showed you about 6 months?
Yeah, they just gave me the warrant when they left.
But the address didn't match on the warrant.
No, it says that address, but they came from both sides. They said they only took stuff out of there, but they ransacked my place and.
But that's not legal, so
not.
You have a case.
Yeah.
How does this make you feel?
I'm
Violated?
I'm upset. I have high blood pressure, so I shouldn't be stressing out, and I'm very stressed out right now. Very stressed out.
Was there anybody else in the house?
No one was with me. They did arrest someone out of there too. I don't know their name. but they did take someone from out of that house.
And did they take anything else out of the house, like boxes or
Yeah,
anything?
they took a lot of stuff.
Out of this front house right
Out
here.
of the front house.
And now, is this front house a rental or is it?
Oh, yes. I have my landlord on here now.
Murphy, and you live here?
I do. Yeah, I do.
How long have you lived here?
7 months.
7 months. And you have no idea why they came here? Nothing, no warning, anything.
Did they give you a reason?
They said after they were finished that they were looking for someone that gave this address as their address.
Imagine my surprise when I tuned into the news that night and saw what they had to say was happening, which was this.
Customs and Border Protection says agents were serving a search warrant at what they're calling a human smuggling hub with ties to national security threats. Earlier this week, CBP said several Iranian nationals were arrested at the same address. CBP says those taken into custody include people on the FBI's terror watch list.
So now this is a human smuggling operation with multiple people from the FBI's most wanted list. They're saying that they took 7 people into custody during the week. 7 Iranian nationals. FBI terror threats. But yet there wasn't a blip in our neighborhood. There was no notice. Nobody talked about it. Nobody in that block mentioned anything about a raid happening that week on their own block. Nobody on that block knew what was happening. The woman said this about the block.
Does it surprise you that this goes on in your neighborhood? It happens to you?
This neighborhood is quiet. This is the first time I ever heard anything around here, so I didn't know what was going on.
I concur. Our neighborhood is quiet, and if something happens, we know about it. People often go on Ring or Nextdoor or other neighborhood apps to tell everything that's happening nowadays. And you don't think that a human smuggling ring with 7 people being arrested would have been anywhere, or people wouldn't have mentioned that yesterday.
Neighbors tell us someone new moved into the home about 6 months ago.
There was a bunch of young people, and they would hang out at night, pacing on the phone, sitting on the curbs. I know I talked to my neighbors. They were saying that they were kind of intimidated by them.
The woman did say she moved in about 7 months ago.
We did talk to one neighbor who says that the men who were taken into custody did have immigration documentation, that they were here legally, but we have no way to corroborate that, of course, because they're gone now. She's very worried about them.
So which is it? Were all you guys super scared of your neighbors, or are you worried about them? There were also no official police helping or providing a border, perimeter, or anything. And if this was such a huge human smuggling operation they were busting, how come there were no police helicopters, but the Fox News helicopter was hovering above the entire time? So basically, we were told it was a drug bust, it was an ICE raid, and then they told the woman whose house they broke into that they were looking for somebody, and this was the address that they were given. What is the actual truth here? Because what the news is telling you is nothing that any of us observed. How come you didn't interview the woman again, or even take the interview that was already done with the woman whose house that they ransacked and pushed their way into after showing a warrant that had the wrong address on it? Where was the reporting in the story about that woman and what she went through? I would just encourage people to always look for facts and look for truth in stuff. We here in Los Angeles do not want these ICE raids. So thank you for taking a couple of minutes to watch this video and listen to a different perspective of what could have happened yesterday here in North Hills.
So as this woman points out, At first, they told her it was a drug raid. And we see that a lot down here. I'm in San Diego. We're seeing it down here too, where they're like, oh, no, it's a drug raid. And that is so you won't ask any questions. Because when you say drug raid or Iranian smuggling event, then everybody's like, well, do whatever you have to do. Right? Fucking lying. What they were trying to do, what they're trying to do is create the idea in your head that there are Iranian terrorist cells in this country. But they're never going to follow up. I mean, this is the same thing that Chief Gregory Bovino of El Centro Border Patrol did on the first raid in California in Kern County when he claimed that I think he got 77, 76 undocumented arrests that day. It took 65 agents to arrest 76, 78 people, something like that. He claimed every single one of them were really bad criminals, even put out a list of like, this person did this person did that, but wouldn't put out the names. And that told me he's full of shit right then and there, because they always brag about everything, right? So, and then he was. It turns out that everyone except for one person, every single person they arrested that day in Kern County, except for one person, did not have a prior criminal record or even a prior immigration record, period. Nothing. Just regular people working in the farms, providing food for Americans. He lied about that. So this, as she says, KCAL 9 News in LA covers this raid in North Hills. And the woman heard the helicopter, so she went out. All her neighbors are out. And as you saw, she interviews the woman whose house they raid and finds out. And Fox News is sitting there. You can hear them interviewing her. Oh, so they got the wrong house. Oh, but did they rough you up? Yeah, they did. You could tell she's very distraught over what happened. They got the wrong house, but they tore her house apart. But that is not what you saw on the news, is it? This happened all during the invasion that they called it, or the big crossings during Biden when they said, oh, this is an invasion. It's the same thing. They take Fox News, the union, Border Patrol union, drives around either in the same car, or they lead Fox News and the other news outlets around, and they create these scenes, knowing that the news cycle is going so fast, so furious, that nobody's going to be able to check if they really charged anybody with being an Iranian terrorist. Here's the thing, the Border Patrol always claims that they caught all these terrorists. But the way they say it is we caught somebody and their name was on the terrorist watch list. The terrorist watch list is as worthless as the no-fly list, because these fucking idiot cops put everybody's fucking name on it. Everybody's. If they had ever caught a terrorist going across the southern border, don't you think that they would talk about it endlessly? Don't you think that whoever was the chief of the Border Patrol would have a medal put around his neck by the president of the United States if they caught a terrorist? Let's remember how the 9/11 terrorists got into this country. It was the fucking immigration agencies, the immigration enforcement agencies, who let them in. And now we reward them with all this money and all this power. And look what they are fucking doing to Americans. They are told that it is a drug bust. It is not a drug bust. Then they are told that they got 7 Iranian terrorists out of this house just last week. Where is the fucking proof? There is none. But yet they're right-wing idiots, and all of these enforcement agencies and Tom Homan and Christian Noem will get up there and they'll repeat it and they'll repeat it and they'll repeat it. And the mainstream media says shit, says nothing, or they repeat what right-wing media is saying. This woman did a huge service to everybody in the United States, and I thank her for this. She's very brave to do this. But this is the norm. This is what these agencies are up to. Fox News came out and says it's a human smuggling event with Iranian ties to terrorists, to FBI's terrorist watch list. Where's the proof? Stop believing what they tell you and believe it if they show it to you and prove it to you. Okay? That is what's going on here. That is propaganda. The whole park incident, when they went into MacArthur Park, like maybe a week later, a few days later, this week when they did that, it's the same thing. That's all public relations. They have so many people filming them. It's ridiculous. I mean, Chief Gregory Bovino himself takes 5 agents out of the field and has them work full time on making videos of himself on his horse or standing outside of a house and saying, "We're going to raid this house," and then they go over and they go poof and they break out the windows. It's like not even anything serious. They're just making films of themselves using our tax dollars doing this shit. And most of it's not true. Most of it is not true. One thing I'd also like to say, in as far as the raid at the pot farm. So there was a pot farm that they went to, had 200 employees. The Border Patrol's contact guy in LA who's running this, Chief Gregory Bovino, said, well, there's some of those 300,000 kids that were disappeared. See, he's listening to that QAnon shit. I told you he was a QAnon guy. So he's like, oh, some of those 300,000 kids, we found them. 10 kids being forced to work at this pot farm. Number one, you don't know if they were being forced. 2, only one was 14 years old. The rest of them were like 16 and 17. Kids can work at that age. You Republicans are trying to pass bills to make it legal for kids to work and actually sell alcohol and stuff to people in Florida. So I don't know why you give a shit about these migrant kids. You sure as shit really don't, the way you separate them from their families. Those children that were found at the farm, the 10 children, one at 14 and the rest were like 16 and up. They're not going out trying to find these supposed 300,000 missing children. If they cared, if that was real, they would be out there looking for them. They're not. They're in your communities, kidnapping your neighbors who have no criminal records and a lot of times no even immigration records. And this is something that the Border Patrol, ICE, and all of them do. They all act like they're humanitarians, that like they act like they care about all these kids. But let us remember that when Donald Trump was in office the first time and these numbnuts went after him and were like, oh, we love Donald Trump, let's support him and all this other stuff. What did they do? There were like kids that died in 4 years under Donald Trump in CBP and Border Patrol custody. Do you know when the last time a child died in CBP custody, Border Patrol custody, before the first 4 years of Donald Trump? 2010, 6 years. And then Donald Trump came in and a whole bunch of them died. That tells you there's been a huge change. So let me remind you that during the first Trump administration, that they let children die in their custody, sitting in their dirty diapers and stuff because they didn't give a shit about them. I want to remind you that they allowed a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old boy to die on a cell room floor and lay there for hours, dead at the base of a toilet. And they're supposed to check him every 15 minutes. And a nurse had said, you need to get this kid to the hospital. His vital signs are bad. He had the flu and he died. They're not responsible. They don't care. We did everything we could do. Nobody's ever held accountable. Let me remind you, these are the agents that took their long reins and tried to whip Haitian migrants who were already set foot in the United States, and they used their horses to chase their families and put them in danger. And their excuse from their oversight agency, CBP OPR, Daniel Altman, was, oh, they're fine. Even though they were swinging the reins, it didn't actually hit anybody, so it doesn't count. So I guess if we go to rob a bank and we don't succeed, does it not count? I guess if we go to stab or rape somebody and we don't succeed, does it not count? Let me remind you about the murder buoys that they now have extended all across Texas, designed with nets underneath to catch their feet, to drown them. And they are not telling you how many people they have killed with those buoys because they don't want you to know, but it is a ton because the bodies wash up in Mexico and nobody's telling you. Let me remind you that these are the same agents who were complaining that they didn't have enough resources to tend to migrants and demanded millions and millions of more dollars in taxpayer money, and they got it, but they didn't spend it on migrants and taking care of migrants. They spent it on ATVs and dirt bikes. Let me remind you that their chiefs are so fucking corrupt. They have to resign before investigations into sexual misconduct get them, so that they can keep their pensions and their retirement, so that the Border Patrol can say, well, he wasn't arrested while he was an agent, right? Let me remind you that the chief of the entire Border Patrol was just under investigation, Chief Owens, and Chief Chavez, Gloria Chavez, for going to Mexico and partying with a Mexican tequila maker and offering him the Border Patrol logo to put on his tequila bottles to sell. But that investigation has disappeared too, because the guy investigating it, the former Border Patrol agent in charge of CBP OPR, Daniel Altman, just retired. And so that investigation just went nowhere. And at the same time, I see that Donald Trump has put out that he has now made it possible for Border Patrol, ICE, and CBP, the immigration enforcement agencies, to be able to arrest people who are trying to assault them. And I'm sure many of you think that's a good thing. But here's what you don't know. They could have already arrested them. There's nothing that prevents a Border Patrol agent from arresting somebody who's trying to assault them. That's ridiculous. They already have the power to do that. It states in the law that if it's outside immigration, narcotics enforcement on the border, if it's outside of customs enforcement on the border, if they see a crime, if they see a man sexually assaulting somebody, they can arrest that man, even though it's outside of their jurisdiction, because they're witnessing the crime. Same with murder. They can do that. They have the power to do that. They do it all the time. I have no idea what Donald Trump is trying to say, other than I think he's trying to make you think these poor agents, see, they can't even protect themselves. No, they can. They just want other cops to do it for them. If people really wanted to hurt the ICE agents and stuff, they'd be throwing rocks at them, at their heads. They wouldn't be waiting for them to get in their cars. That's frustration that you're seeing. And Chrissy Nome putting out, or whoever it was at DHS putting out, that people are doxing ICE agents and that's illegal. They go, they're illegally doxing ICE agents. It's not illegal to dox people. It sucks and it shouldn't be done. But there ain't no law against that. You're just talking out their asses. And you need to start really thinking about what they're saying. Because I think most of you would be like, well, that's terrible that ICE agents and Border Patrol agents they can't arrest people who are throwing rocks at them. In the Border Patrol, we kill people for even looking at a rock. And we get away with it. And that is not an exaggeration. That is not an exaggeration. I want to remind you of one more thing and why you should not trust these agents. Let's go back to January 6th in the insurrection, when the United States Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE had over 50 agents just blocks away from the Capitol. Just blocks. And for 3 hours, those agents sat there. These were all BORTAC, ICE SRTs, special forces that train constantly for this kind of stuff, like SWAT team. At the time, the chief of the Border Patrol was Rodney Scott. So we don't know what happened and why nobody from DHS responded on that day, and why the Border Patrol and CBP and ICE did not respond if they had people at the ready, in gear, expecting this to happen. And their response eventually was, we did not get a phone call. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if I was a law enforcement officer on that day, and I was anywhere near that building and I had my gun and my badge on me, I would have responded. You don't fucking have to tell me to do that. The Capitol building of your country is being attacked. You better get your ass up and respond. But Rodney Scott refused to respond on that day. And guess where Rodney Scott is today? Well, he was rewarded as CBP commissioner. CBP is a bigger agency than the Border Patrol. They deal with so many things like trade and science and all sorts of stuff. Lots and lots of money and permits and all this thing going for back and forth. Something that the Border Patrol does not deal with at all. Rodney Scott was rewarded for letting January 6th happen and not responding. He was rewarded for not protecting the Capitol. That's who these people are. That's who these people are. But just in case you're still not sure, let me show you what these agents who are out there kidnapping you all right now are doing. They are making and selling memorabilia for the LA raids that they're doing. They're not selling any other memorabilia. Like, oh, we're in Massachusetts. Let me get one of those coins. I need one of those coins. I need one of those hats. Give me a decal for that. Says something nasty about migrants. No. They're just talking about LA. And they're talking about LA because Border Patrol agents and immigration enforcement agents in general, they pretty much, just like I said, they think Democrats are evil, Republicans are great. These are about patriots. They think that they are all about machismo, masculinity, patriotism, Christianity, all that stuff. Democrats are just, it's almost like the difference between two football teams. I'm from Alabama, so I'm going to say Auburn, Alabama. You're either Auburn or Alabama. But here's the thing, we don't really hate each other. You shouldn't hate each other. You shouldn't hate each other. But that's kind of how these people see it. If you are for migrants, then you are against the agencies and their people. It's just as simple as that. It's black and white to them. They are not capable of deep thought. They are not capable of intellectual thought. They are about how to get what they want. And if they have to break the law to do it, then they'll do it. But they are always the victims as well. And so that's what you see in their response to this. Oh, our ICE agents are being attacked. And it's like, you're bringing this on yourself. You are acting lawless, ignoring the law, coming into our communities with your weapons exposed and aimed at citizens and children. But you are somehow the victims here. So I'm going to show you what they're printing. I'm going to show you what they are buying, printing, and selling. And this agent who does this out of the old patrol headquarters is what he calls it. He actually works with Rodney Scott one-on-one during the Biden administration. He worked with the Border Patrol Union, and he worked with them to help put out propaganda and lies. And he makes a ton of money off of this stuff. He makes a ton of money off of selling this shit. Here we have a sticker, or oh, it's a magnet. Deportations for everybody. What they're saying there is, when you all think that we're just going to arrest the criminals, no. We consider you all criminals. And then, oh, here's another one, same graphic. Illegals, all of you. You are all illegals, including you Democrats. That's what they believe. And you see, obviously they love Trump. They're sold out of the Trump fight commemorative coin. They think that's brilliant. America's Most Wanted. Pre-order. You can get this coin. $26. The president we support's a criminal. We love it. Come on. But this is what got me the most, and this is what I want to leave you with, okay? I want you to, I don't care, clip this video, do whatever you want to, but I want you to make sure this gets out there. This is what Border Patrol agents are buying and selling right now. Quote, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That is the pledge we take when we become agents. But note that they added something to it. What did they add? Mostly domestic. That means they are not going to arrest people they consider on their sides. They're not going to arrest militia. They're not going to arrest white supremacists. They're not going to arrest anybody who's right wing. We will not defend the United States against right wing terrorism. That is what the United States Border Patrol is saying to you there. And you can't sit there and say, well, he's an ex-agent and he doesn't really represent the Border Patrol. That's what they'll come out with. This guy has worked with Rodney Scott for the last 4 years. He has contacts within CBP and Border Patrol, and they float propaganda through this guy. That is who these agencies are. And I need you to stop believing in this American exceptionalism. I need you to understand that even if you may know somebody that went into that agency and you think that they're a good person, they may be a good person. But like I said, they're not engaged in this kind of stuff. It's not about the people. It's about the organization. And they are willing to do whatever the organization tells them to do. And the reason why you should accept, another reason why you should accept this is because after 9/11, they started quietly screening people for ideology. The people in these agencies believe for whatever reason that crossing the border without inspection or being undocumented is akin to being a terrorist. And I say this because their union vice president, Art Del Cueto, has said this. Anybody who crosses that border without inspection, in his words, is a terrorist. This is how they train those agents. This is what those agents believe. And every time they sit there and act like they care about migrant children, every time they sit there and act like they care about migrants who die out there and stuff, they don't. They say it, but their actions do not prove it. These are people who wrap themselves in the American flag so that they can protect themselves from what they are doing. You wouldn't have to protect yourselves like that if you were actually arresting violent criminals who needed to be taken out of the country. And I really wish people would have listened to me when I said we think they're all criminals. We think they're all undocumented, or as we would say in the patrol, illegal. But I was called hyperbolic and ridiculous. But it's all here, just like I told you. But more than anything on these ICE raids right now, especially in LA, who you should be following, LA Taco. LA Taco used to be a group that went around and just tasted the great tacos and told you where all the great tacos were. And then ICE started doing these raids, and they decided to start helping their community. So that's what they're doing. They have really, 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 really good news coverage. And they will call out propaganda and bullshit when it comes out. So remember, when ICE, Border Patrol, and CBP come out with things and ask you to print them or air them, or Fox News, you're thinking about using Fox News footage, think twice about that. At least research it and see if it's actually true or not. All right. I'll catch y'all later. Thanks. Bye.